Thanks for joining us for another edition of The Small Business Show with Shyann Malone, exclusively on ASBN.com.
Hi everyone, I'm Shyann Malone. Thanks for tuning in. Unlocking your full potential starts with adopting a growth mindset, developing grit, and embodying graciousness. On today's show, we welcome back Guy Kawasaki. He's here to discuss more on this topic. And Guy is based out of California, the Silicon Valley venture capitalist he is and was. Host of Remarkable People podcast, a speaker, and author of, let's just say, 15 books, yes. And his latest book he co-authored titled Think Remarkable, 9 Paths to Transform Your Life and Make a Difference. Welcome, Guy.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm glad to have you. So this book comes out. I have a copy of it right here, coming up in the next couple of weeks or so. It gives readers insight to over 200 interviews with remarkable people, lessons, advice, and much more. Tell us about the book itself and really the inspiration behind it.
Sure. I'm the host of a podcast called Remarkable People, and our guests are remarkable people like Jane Goodall, Steve Wozniak, Stacey Abrams from your neighborhood. And we try to have these remarkable people provide information and inspiration about how they became remarkable and how they make it a difference. And after 4 years of doing this, we had a couple hundred episodes and 5,000 pages of transcripts. And we looked at that and we said, who's going to listen to 200 hours and read 5,000 pages? And yet we have this gold mine of information and inspiration. So we decided to make a book out of it. And we took 5,000 pages of interviews down to 170 so that in an afternoon or certainly a weekend, you can get a very practical and tactical guide about how to make a difference and be remarkable.
And, what do you mean by remarkable? Obviously, a lot of outstanding people here, but how do you measure this?
The definition of remarkable for us is that you have made a difference or you are making a difference. Now, I don't want people to get the impression that this means you have to be a Jane Goodall or a Steve Jobs, because you can be remarkable just changing one life, one classroom, one team, one lake. It's not simply the footprint that you have, but it's more the fact that in any small way even, you contribute to making the world a better place. And there are many, many, many remarkable people you never heard of because they're not in the limelight. They're not Silicon Valley entrepreneurs. And this book is really for them.
Sure, you're right. I know a few myself that aren't in the forefront of anything. When you talk about the different stages in this book, there are 3 that you highlight. Kind of walk us through those.
Sure. So after doing all these interviews, unless you're asleep, you begin to have pattern recognition. And the pattern recognition was everybody has a growth mindset. Everybody works hard. That's a grit mindset. And towards the end of their career, they transition into another phase, which I call grace. So it's growth, grit, grace. And in the grace phase, now you decide that it's time to pay back. And this pattern emerged over and over again. And so this book is really meant for, in particular, I think, young people, or maybe the parents of young people who are tired of telling them to listen to them and instead listen to this guy. He was chief evangelist of Canva, or he is chief evangelist of Canva. He was chief evangelist of Apple. So don't listen to me, listen to him. And it basically is a guide to figuring out life and to make a difference.
You also talk about 9 paths to transform one's life in your book. Kind of highlight a few of them for us.
Sure.
I know we don't have all day, but I'd like to hear more.
Well, yeah, I think the most important thing is to first understand that the sequence, and this is not, I would say, a self-help book in the sense that you're going to read this book and miraculously you're going to be repositioned, rebranded, and, reformed. My perspective is much more basic, which is the way it works is you make a difference. Again, it could be to one person, one coach, one team, one kid, one class. You make a difference. You make the world a better place. And then people will consider you remarkable. So it's not because you woke up one day and you decided, today, why don't I try being remarkable? It's because you actually are contributing to society. And because of this contribution to society, people start considering you remarkable. So there is definitely an order, chicken versus egg, and making a difference comes first.
When you're writing this book, is there one type of person that you had in mind or a variety?
It really is for someone who's searching for a little direction, a little bit of tactical and practical advice. And listen, there are thousands of books, and many of them, if not most of them, they spend 200 or 300 pages explaining one idea. My book has 88 ideas. That's not to say you need to do 88 things to make a difference or be remarkable, but there are many paths to success. Some paths even conflict. And, a remarkable person can hold two conflicting ideas in their head at once. And so I don't like to do it, and I don't see why people have to read one nonfiction book for 200 pages to get one idea. The nature of my ideas is 2 to 3 pages max, because in 2 to 3 pages, you can get the gist enough to go out and get results.
Of all the stories, if you had to pick one that just stands out, or something that readers should remember, what would it be and why?
I think the most dramatic stories are the people who turned their lives around under the most difficult circumstances. So I have a person named Halim Flowers, and perhaps you've heard of him. Many people say that he's going to be the next Jean-Michel Basquiat. So Halim at 16 was sentenced to 4 decades of imprisonment for a murder he did not commit. 22 years later, he was released, and he came out, and he's made a life for himself as an artist. And, everybody has to overcome something, but 22 years in prison to become a productive, remarkable artist, that's a great story. And I think it should serve as an inspiration to many, many people, because most of us are not trying to overcome 22 years of hard time.
Who do you think would get the most direction, if you will, if they were? What type of person? Someone who is maybe, battling something, or someone who is driven, or maybe someone who's already at the top being remarkable, maybe even more so influenced?
Listen, if someone is at the top of his or her game and is already remarkable, you probably don't need this book. Maybe you could write this book. This book is for young people who are searching. They're trying to figure out a way. They're getting advice, or maybe they're ignoring advice. And I just want to be, that mentor, that coach, that teacher, that inspiration that put you on the right track and gave you direction. And in a sense, what I've learned is, as you look back over your life, the hardest teachers, the hardest coaches, the hardest bosses, they taught you the most. I learned the most from Steve Jobs. He was the hardest boss in the world. And it may take 10 or 20 years, but you'll look back and you say, that coach, that teacher, that boss really helped me. And I hope that people look back at this book and say the same thing.
I love that. Any final thoughts for us, Guy?
My final thoughts is just remember that, life is short. And I end the book with a study from Daniel Pink. He did a study about the regrets of people around the world. And by and large, he found that people regret the most is not taking too much risk, but taking too little risk. So life is short. Go for it.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Guy Kawasaki, Silicon Valley venture capitalist, host of Remarkable People podcast, speaker, and author. Thanks so much for your time, Guy. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All the best to you.
Likewise, and thank all of you for watching.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of The Small Business Show with Shyann Malone, exclusively on ASBN.com.